Welcome to Conversations in Higher Education, where collaboration meets innovation. I'm John Myer on behalf of Rackspace Technology, and we're here at EDUCAUSE 2025 in Nashville. And we're sitting down with leaders who are transforming higher education. Today's conversations, it's about what matters most: building trust, empowering students, and creating the future of learning. Joining us today is Jeff Martinez from Rackspace. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, pleasure. Thanks.
Jeff, the top 10 initiatives for EDUCAUSE is all about restoring trust in higher education. Why is that a challenge today?
I think it's a challenge only because it's the priority. It's always a priority, building trust, right? But here currently in the ecosystem of higher education, I think it's even more important. These CIOs that are out there are challenged with cost efficiencies and making sure they're providing acceleration and access to students and faculty, and to do that and to insert solutions that provide that acceleration. Maybe it's AI technology, maybe it's something else. I think CIOs are truly, and institutions are truly challenged with ensuring that they make sure the transparency, the security, the compliance is still there, that keeps up with the pace of how students and faculty are learning or teaching or researching. And I think that's really the challenge.
Jeff, with the growing scrutiny of privacy, how do you actually ensure transparency and trust when using student or even faculty data with valued partners?
I think zooming out, less about the shiny objects, but more about really providing a strategy around data governance, the security, the compliance that we talked about. I think those are really the foundational pieces and parts, right? And to do that, the CIOs and these higher education institutions are really relying on their experts because they've got a lot of them, but also their partner ecosystem to be able to provide expertise, perspectives, and even research that provides them the visibility to understand how to provide that transparency, how to provide that access at the same time, and still accelerate the process.
Actually, that was my next question: is how do partners balance not only the innovation, but the data and security around student information in order to go fast but stay secure?
If you're partnering with a higher education institution, there is one thing for sure: those institutions, those professionals, they have a culture of cost accountability, security accountability. They have the weight of those institutions, the student data, the information, all on their shoulders, right? And so for them to really provide a secure and actually a transparent environment for them to do that, I think that's where they need to start, in making sure that their ecosystem of partners are really understanding their mission, understanding the compliance, the standards, and the policies that they must adhere to, and then talking to them, collaborating with them, and doing with, not just doing for.
Are there any specific challenges or pain points that maybe you or your partners are experiencing with this innovation?
Well, there's so much data out there, right? Institutions have been doing what they're doing for such a long time. And so they have got a huge wealth of data that they've already collected. And so getting their arms wrapped around that, ensuring that they have a one strategy for all kind of thing in their institution. There's different departments, as you know, there's different processes, as you know. And so instead of having this broken pieces and parts, that creates the institution, CIOs, I think the main challenge for them is to be able to wrap their arms around that, to get buy-in from the different departments, to get buy-in from everybody that's involved, to include their procurement departments and offices, and make sure they all understand what the value is of having that one strategy.
Jeff, do you feel that higher education institutions are almost like corporations, that they still have those silos, those departments, those policies per departments, and now you have to manage those individually and separately, almost as like a corporation as well? But on top of that, they have the added value that they have to take their students into consideration and make sure that their students are taken care of. They are not employees, and they have to make sure that the value is there for them as well as their student.
Well, I think the best analogy between a higher institution or higher education institution and a corporation is the customers choose them. And so for any higher education institution to be marketable, to be trusted, to be somewhere where those families want to invest in their higher education, to send their children to, or to go back to school to get that master's degree or the MBA, they have to be aware. And I think higher education institutions they're aware that they're building trust and that they have to create an environment where people can come and feel protected with their data, that feels, not just physical security, but their IT, their all of the information that's out there is just as important, right? And so when you think about how CIOs are approaching well-architected reviews, evaluating their data storage, and really kind of making sure that environments are right sized, especially in the public cloud, that's really creating the right environment for them to provide the differentiator between them and anybody else.
Are there any inefficiencies or gaps that higher education is facing towards innovation?
I think because innovation is moving so swiftly, there's always going to be gaps. And because they have such a responsibility
Yep.
to provide that secure, that compliant environment, especially in the IT category, I think higher education institutions must have a slower pace to innovation. They have to make sure that the risk is mitigated before they jump into something that might expose student data, information, research data, whatever that is, right? And so you you can't just jump into a process and say, hey, we're just going to accelerate, we're going to throw AI over top of this and it's all going to be better, right? They really have to make sure that they're mitigating the risk. They understand what the business results that they're really trying to target, and then working with the right partner ecosystem, like we mentioned before, to be able to provide the right solution at the right pace for the right security compliance that they require.
Jeff, you mentioned that students and parents are looking at these institutions to invest in them, right? So a student is investing in this higher education. How important is it not only for the education, but that now are the students taking into consideration what the education is doing with their data?
Absolutely. Even so, more than ever, students especially are aware of I mean, think about
We weren't aware of it.
think about any household that's going on. Like my kids in my own home, they're more aware of the impacts and or how IT functions, how to communicate, how to promote themselves or their teams or whatever it is. And so I think you have students that are coming into these higher education institutions that are very, very knowledgeable about the IT spectrum and about social media and where their data is and where their data isn't. And I think they have a higher concern of their data, security. And so I think that's something that higher education institutions are really taking into consideration and really building that within their strategies.
Another thing you're taking into consideration is the cost of running this infrastructure, running this environment. How important is it to have the right partnership to not only lower costs, but balance and increase sustainability?
Well, it goes back to me saying that these higher education institutions are really building a culture of cost accountability, right? It's not just spending the money and hoping for the best result. It's also making sure that proactively they are interpreting the data. They're providing alerts on their cost initiatives, and then they're working with their partners to make sure that they understand the reporting and the timing and understanding where that cost is really going. Public cloud is a great example, right? If you really don't have that finops, strategy, if you really don't have that ability for cost management, then you start to lose track of where things are and things get out of control. Not everybody that's in the public cloud is having a great experience because they have to zoom out proactively and have that cost management strategy in place up front.
I think the most important part of a partnership is the trust with the partnership. I mean, I know we're here at EDUCAUSE and we're talking powering trust and restoring a lot of it. It's restoring not only students and everything, but with partners and that relationship, because you want them to have the best interest, not only for you, but for the students, for the institution. They have to have great ethics all around.
I'm a big believer in trust relationships, and I think a lot of the vendor partners here are as well. But you have thousands of higher education professionals here in Nashville, Tennessee this week. And they're collaborating, they're networking, but they're also looking for that right partner ecosystem to expand their partner ecosystem. And so for me, my advice to any of the partner vendors out there is to really genuinely understand the mission, genuinely understand the problems that are trying to be solved, the end results, the business result, not just the migration or the sale. It's more about, providing the overall enablement for the strategy that's in hand and why it's important to that particular institution. Every institution, just like any other institution in the public sector, their missions are very unique. State to state, city to city, no matter what it is. Same thing here. Institution versus institution, their priorities are always different. their gaps, if you will, that we talked about earlier, are always different. And the pace of innovation just maximizes and amplifies that every day.
Jeff, my last question for you is, how do you actually balance innovation with the processes, the discipline, and the need for long-term support and innovation?
It's doing with, not doing for. You have to have that approach with higher education institutions that you understand what they're trying to solve. And so when you build a solution together and you implement that solution, you are really investing in that particular institution's success. And so to be successful and to be rinse and repeat, you have to make sure that all of those items, those topics that we talked about, whether it's, accelerating onboarding, whether it's a compliant cloud, whether it's a landing zone, whether it's just being visible and being present, all of those things really matter for the success of an institution partnering with somebody who walks in the door and says, I've got the enabling solution for you.
Jeff, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, everybody, thanks to Jeff Martinez for sharing his insights with us. I'm John Myer here at EDUCAUSE Conference 2025.